Hello. I am Merlin, the Microsoft agent, and I will be your guide during this lesson. Are you ready to start? Okay, let's begin. So what is next? Now I remember. In this lesson you will know more about how web pages works and why ASP.NET is the coolest way to create websites. Yes. This course is divided into 7 chapters. Come with me to the next slide to see exactly what is in every video of this training. Here are the topics covered in this chapter. Each topic has a corresponding video. In the first chapter, we will review some concepts you may already know about HTML and XML. And we will learn about the differences between them. We will also talk about why XML is important. Then we will learn about what an interpreter does. Finally, at the end of this chapter, I will show you the difference between a static and a dynamic page. Hello. Now that I finished my lunch, I would like to review some HTML concepts with you. As you may know, HTML consists of special groups of characters, called a tag. The tags affect how text is displayed in the browser. A browser is a program used to view web pages, like Microsoft Internet Explorer for example. When you use tags to affect a portion of text, you must specify the exact portion of text affected by the tag. To do that, you start marking the start of the portion of the text to be affected with a tag. The way I am showing you now. And finish with the same tag but with a slash at the beginning to indicate a closing tag. As you can see here. Then, when you see the text in the browser, you will find that just the portion of the text delimited by the tags is affected. But how exactly is this text affected by the tag? Tags can mean different things. For example, a B means bold, so the text affected by a tag with a B will be shown in a bold font. Look at the example. The tag bold affects only the word bold. Let's see how it looks in a browser. The tag italic affects only the word italic. See? Let's see how it looks in a browser. The tag line break creates a line break after the word hello. In a browser it looks like this. Let's see another example. You can add some properties to the tag, like a color. The word this should be displayed in blue. Nice. Great. I will cook my dinner while you check this page to be sure you understood what I've shown you in this slide. Okay, let's go. To understand the differences between HTML and XML, I would like to do a little exercise with you. Look at this text and tell me. What is George? Eh? What is George? A name? Woo! Did you set a name? I hope you did not say that. If you said George is a name, that's because using your knowledge, and in your cultural context, George is often referred to as the name of a person. But to a computer, it could mean anything. So now, let's try this again. What is georgiuho@microsoft.com? I have time. So? Again, a computer doesn't know that this is an email. And the final number could mean anything also. Okay. That exercise could be a little confusing, but I would like to ask you again using what we learned in the last slide about HTML. What thing that is a fact could you tell me about this? Well, of course. The George thing will appear in bold when you see the code in a browser. And there is more. There will be a break line after that. And the georgiuho@microsoft.com thing will appear in italics color red. And what about the number at the end? It will look like plain text. Let's see it in a browser. There you have. Now let's look at another example. Okay, this is not HTML, but I am sure you can answer my questions this time. This time, what is George? A name. In this case, that is the right answer. George is a name because the tag surrounding it specified it as a name. Great, isn't it? The tags, in this case, are very meaningful and not just used for formatting. We can now see that the number at the end is actually a phone number. So now I have a final question. We know that George is a name, georgiuho@microsoft.com is an email address, and 555-888-888-8111 is a phone number. But for what? For a contact. Of course, those are facts about a contact, because they are grouped within the contact tag. The previous example was HTML, and this example is using XML. We know that HTML gives us information about how text will be displayed, but it doesn't tell us anything about the data itself. On the other hand, XML describes the data very well, but it doesn't give us information about formatting. Is it clear now? I can't hear you. Move on to the next slide and we'll see why XML is important. Imagine this scenario. We have a company whose internal applications and systems all run on a technology called Martian version 2.0. They buy their office supplies from a specific provider, and they would like to integrate their internal purchasing system with that of the provider in order to automate their purchasing and invoicing. The provider would like to integrate their sales systems with their customer as well, but they use Swahili version 3.2 as their internal technology for all their applications. As a result, they can't communicate with each other. For example, the customer would like to buy some ink, but the provider can't understand what they are requesting because it's in Martian 2.0. One possible solution to this problem could be Either the customer or the provider could change their system to match the other, but that could be expensive. Let's see how XML can help. Here's a solution using XML. Every time the customer sends a request to the provider, use the XML format to specify the name of the product. Using XML in this way just requires minor changes to the Martian 2.0 system. And the provider also needs to be prepared to receive and send data using XML format. This way all the communication between the customer and the provider will be in XML. And since they're speaking the same language, they will understand each other. Everybody's happy. Move on to the next slide. This is a picture of my friend Kitty. He's going to be helping me later. Now let's talk about the interpreter. Imagine 3 different people who saw this. The first person would just see many lines and black circles. The second person may recognize this as music, but not know what it sounds like. And the third person may see this and instantly start singing. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da da da. Da 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 da. Okay, I'm not Pavarotti. But that was fun. Well, in this case, the first 2 people couldn't interpret these symbols. But the third person was a musician, and was the right interpreter for this musical code. Here we have some HTML code inside Notepad. When Notepad opens a HTML document, it doesn't have the ability to do an interpretation of HTML. That is why Notepad just shows us the code, nothing more. But what happens when we give this same code to a browser? A browser is the right program to use to do an interpretation of HTML code. Hopefully you have a better understanding of what an interpreter does in the world of computers. Come with me to the next slide. Hello. Here we have a computer connected to the internet. The internet is represented by the cloud. And on this side we have a web server. Did I say web server? Sorry, I didn't explain what a web server is, so let me take a couple of minutes to do that. The web pages you see in your browser live on a web server somewhere. The web server hosts the pages in a public address or URL for them. This URL provides a way for all the computers connected to internet to find this website. There are special kinds of web servers called DNS servers. The DNS servers are the ones who know the relationship between a domain name like www.microsoft.com and the particular web server that hosts these pages. You can think of DNS servers as a lookup service. For example, say someone is looking for the page snippage HTML on some domain. Like this, www.microsoft.com/snippage.html. The DNS server will redirect the request to the specific web server that hosts the pages for that domain. And then the web server will respond to the request by serving up the page. Oh, the computer who requested it. But now let's get back to the lesson. I apologize for the distraction. Let me recreate the original slide for you. When the client computer requests a static web page, like the HTML page of this example, the web server receives the request and sends the page directly to the requester without doing anything to the page. because it is not its job to do an interpretation of the HTML. The page goes to the client computer that requested it, and the browser does the HTML interpretation to show the formatted page. In this case, the web server just serves the requested pages. That is why we call these kind of plain HTML pages static, because the content of the pages doesn't change PLAY explain, and the browser does all the interpretation. Now let's see what happens with a dynamic web page. A dynamic web page contains code that the web server needs to execute before sending the response back to the client. The extension of the requested file indicates whether it is a static or dynamic web page. In this example, we used HTML to indicate a static HTML page, but now I will use a dynamic page named SPX. The extension ASPX indicates it is a dynamic page. This means that the web server will analyze and execute the code inside SPX before sending the response to the client. The code inside a dynamic web page could do many things. For example, it could connect to a data store to retrieve some information. In this case, the code would need to provide a mechanism or instructions to create the connection to the data store, and then get the data requested. For example, the dynamic web page may look up the 4 most popular musicians in the world. Take a look. Finally, the server gets the data requested and needs to do something with it. Hooray! Because the original page, SPX, contains code with instructions for the server needs to dynamically create a new HTML page for the client requester computer that shows the data requested so the client's browser can do the HTML interpretation. That's why we call this a dynamic web page. To the end user, there's really no difference between my page HTML and my page ASPX. They both show HTML interpreted by the browser, but the process that the web server goes through to serve these 2 pages is very different. Now it's almost time to talk about ASP.NET. Just one more slide. Yes, HTML pages are static. These are the HTML extensions. Microsoft ASP.NET pages have the ASPX extension. We covered a lot of material in this chapter. Congratulations for making it through. Now you need to run the second video for chapter 2, where we will learn about ASP.NET. Bye.